The colony of New Haven was a quiet place, far from the noise and chaos of Earth's crowded cities. It sat on the edge of human space, surrounded by rolling green hills, dense forests, and fields of golden crops that swayed gently in the breeze. The people who lived there had chosen this life because they wanted something simpler, something closer to nature. They worked hard but found joy in the small things, watching the sun rise over the horizon, sharing meals with neighbors, and letting their children run free under the open sky. Among these settlers were two siblings, Jacob and Lily Carter. Jacob was 12, tall for his age, with messy brown hair and a curious mind. His younger sister Lily was 9, with bright blue eyes and an endless supply of energy. Together, they spent most of their days exploring the wilderness around their home. They would chase butterflies, climb trees, and pretend they were adventurers discovering uncharted lands. Their parents often warned them not to wander too far, but the woods always seemed so inviting, and the children couldn't resist its call. One sunny afternoon, while playing near the outskirts of the settlement, Jacob noticed something strange, sticking out of the ground. At first, he thought it might be a rock or a piece of twisted metal left behind by one of the colony's old farming machines. But as he knelt down to get a closer look, he realized it wasn't like anything he'd ever seen before. The object was smooth and shiny, with intricate patterns etched into its surface. It looked almost alive, as if it pulsed faintly with light. "Lily, come here," Jacob called out, waving his sister over. "Look at this." "What do you think it is?" Lily squinted at the object, tilting her head to one side. "I don't know," she said finally. "Maybe it's some kind of treasure?" Jacob grinned at the idea. "Yeah, maybe aliens dropped it here." He picked up a stick and began poking at the dirt around the object, trying to dig it out. After a few minutes, he managed to unearth more of it. Whatever it was bigger than he'd expected, about the size of a dinner plate, and heavier than it looked. Lily helped him carry it back toward their house, giggling excitedly about how cool it was. When they arrived home, their mother, Rachel Carter, was busy cooking supper in the kitchen. She turned around when she heard the door creak open and immediately frowned at the sight of the muddy object in her children's hands. "What on earth is that?" she asked, wiping her hands on a towel. "We found it in the forest," Jacob explained eagerly. "It looks like alien stuff, doesn't it? Maybe we should show it to Dad." Rachel shook her head, though she couldn't hide a small smile at her son's enthusiasm. "Aliens, huh? Well, I'm sure your father will have plenty to say about that. Go wash up first, though you're both covered in dirt." Later that evening, after dinner, the family gathered around the table to examine the mysterious artifact. Jacob's father, David Carter, studied it carefully, turning it over in his hands. Like Rachel, he didn't believe it belonged to aliens, at least not consciously, but he admitted it was unlike anything he'd seen before. "It could be part of an old satellite or some equipment from another colony," he suggested. "We'll take it to the mayor tomorrow and see what he thinks." The next morning, the Carters brought the artifact to Mayor Peterson's office. The mayor, a kind man named Harold, listened patiently as David explained where they'd found it. After inspecting it himself, Harold promised to send a message to the United Nations Space Command, UNSC, headquarters on Earth, asking for advice. "Better safe than sorry," he said with a chuckle. "You never know what might turn up out here." For the next few days, life in New Haven continued as usual. The artifact became a topic of conversation among the colonists, but no one paid it much attention beyond idle curiosity. That changed abruptly 3 days later, when a group of strangers arrived in the settlement. At first glance, the visitors didn't seem particularly threatening. There were 6 of them, dressed in sleek black uniforms that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. Their faces were hidden behind helmets with tinted visors, making it impossible to read their expressions. They moved with precision, their steps synchronized as if they were part of a single organism. When they spoke, their voices came through electronic filters, cold and mechanical. "Attention, human settlers," one of them announced, standing in the center of the village square. "We are representatives of the Varnock Empire. You possess property belonging to our species. Surrender it immediately, and no harm will come to you." The colonists stared at them in stunned silence. No one had ever encountered aliens before, let alone ones who sounded so hostile. Mayor Peterson stepped forward cautiously, holding up his hands in a gesture of peace. "We don't understand what you're talking about," he said. "If you mean that strange object my people found, we can return it. We didn't know it belonged to anyone." The lead Varnock tilted its head slightly, as if considering his words. Then, without warning, it raised a weapon, a long, slender device that hummed with energy and fired. A bolt of blue light shot out, striking the mayor squarely in the chest. He collapsed instantly, dead before he hit the ground. Panic erupted as the other Varnock soldiers opened fire indiscriminately. Men, women, and children screamed, scattering in all directions as beams of energy tore through the air. Buildings caught fire, sending thick plumes of smoke billowing into the sky. Amid the chaos, Jacob grabbed Lily's hand and pulled her toward the forest, hoping to escape the carnage, but the Varnock were relentless. As they hunted down survivors, they singled out the children, executing them one by one. Jacob and Lily hid behind a fallen tree, trembling with fear as they watched their friends and neighbors fall. Finally, the soldiers found them. Jacob tried to shield his sister with his body, but it was no use. A burst of energy struck Lily first, and then Jacob. They died together, clutching each other's hands. By the time the attack ended, 10 children lay dead, along with several adults who had tried to protect them. The surviving colonists huddled together in shock, unable to comprehend the horror they had just witnessed. The Varnock left as suddenly as they had arrived, leaving behind only destruction and despair. News of the massacre reached Earth within hours, thanks to the colonies' communication systems. Images of the devastation spread across the planet, sparking outrage and grief. People demanded answers, but the UNSC remained silent, unsure of how to respond. For now, the Varnock had delivered their message loud and clear. Interfere with their interests, and there would be consequences. And so, humanity faced a grim reality. The universe was vast and dangerous, filled with beings who saw humans as nothing more than pests to be exterminated. The slaughter of 10 innocent children had ignited a spark of anger deep within the hearts of billions. Somewhere, someone vowed silently that such an atrocity would never happen again. The news of the massacre at New Haven spread like wildfire. Within hours, every corner of Earth and its colonies was talking about it. The images were everywhere on television screens, social media feeds, and newspaper headlines. Photos of the destroyed colony showed burned buildings, charred fields, and the lifeless bodies of children lying in the dirt. It was a sight no one could forget, and it left an indelible mark on humanity. Sarah Bennett sat alone in her small apartment in Chicago, staring at the screen of her tablet. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the reports. She had seen tragedies before during her time as a soldier, but this was different. This wasn't just an attack. It was a message, a brutal warning from an alien species that viewed humans as insignificant. And what made it worse was that one of the victims was her niece, Emily Parker. Sarah closed her eyes, trying to push away the image of Emily's smiling face. The little girl had been only 8 years old, full of energy and curiosity. Sarah remembered taking her to the park last summer, watching her laugh as she chased after ducks near the pond. Now she was gone, along with 9 other children who would never grow up to see their futures. Anger welled up inside Sarah, hot and sharp. How could anyone do this? How could they justify killing innocent kids? She clenched her fists, feeling powerless against the enormity of what had happened. But then, a thought struck her. If the government wasn't going to act, maybe she could. Maybe someone needed to speak out, to make sure the world didn't forget what had happened at New Haven. Determined, Sarah began making calls. She reached out to her contacts in the military, journalists, and activists she'd worked with in the past. By the end of the day, she had gathered enough information to start building a case. She wrote articles, recorded videos, and posted them online, demanding justice for the victims. Her words resonated with people all over the globe. Thousands shared her posts, and soon, protests erupted outside government buildings and UNSC headquarters. Meanwhile, aboard the United Nations Space Command vessel Aurora Dawn, Ethan Grant struggled to process the news. He had grown up knowing many of the families in New Haven, including the Carters. Jacob and Lily Carter had been like younger siblings to him when he visited the colony as a child. Hearing about their deaths hit him hard, leaving a hollow ache in his chest. Ethan's best friend, Alex Monroe, had also been among those killed. They had joined the UNSC together, dreaming of adventure among the stars. But now, Alex was gone, and Ethan felt like part of him had died too. He spent hours sitting alone in the ship's observation deck, staring out at the endless expanse of space. The silence outside matched the emptiness he felt inside. Commander Laura Hayes noticed the change in Ethan almost immediately. Normally cheerful and eager, he now seemed withdrawn, his usual spark dimmed by grief. One evening, she approached him in the mess hall, where he sat picking at a tray of food he hadn't touched. "Ethan," she said gently, sliding into the seat across from him. "How are you holding up?" He looked up, startled. For a moment, he didn't say anything. Then, with a heavy sigh, he admitted, "I don't know, Commander. I keep thinking about Alex and the others, about how we're supposed to protect people, but we couldn't even protect our own." Lavra nodded, understanding the weight of his words. As a leader, she carried the same burden. "It's not easy," she said. "But we can't let this break us. We have to stay strong for them and for everyone else counting on us." Ethan shook his head. "Strong doesn't feel like enough anymore. What good is being strong if we can't stop things like this from happening?" His voice cracked slightly, and Lavra felt a pang of sympathy. She leaned forward, her tone firm but kind. "You're right, it's not enough, but giving up won't bring Alex or the others back. What will honor their memory is doing everything we can to prevent this from happening again. That's why we're here, Ethan, to fight for those who can't fight for themselves." Her words stayed with him long after their conversation ended. Over the next few days, Ethan threw himself into his training, determined to become better, faster, stronger. He practiced dogfighting maneuvers in the simulator, honed his aim with target exercises, and studied Varnock tactics until his eyes burned from exhaustion. Each session left him physically drained, but mentally, he felt more focused than ever. On the other side of the ship, Mia Torres watched Ethan's transformation with quiet admiration. Like him, she had lost someone close to her during a Varnock attack, her younger brother, Lucas. He had been playing outside their family's home on a mining colony when the aliens arrived. Though she hadn't witnessed his death firsthand, the guilt of surviving while he didn't haunted her every day, Mia often found herself drawn to Ethan, sensing that he understood the pain she carried. During breaks between missions, they started talking more, sharing stories about their loved ones and the dreams they once had. Their bond deepened quickly, built on mutual loss and a shared desire for vengeance. One night, as they stood together on the observation deck, Mia broke the silence. "Do you think we'll ever get justice for them?" she asked softly. Ethan glanced at her, seeing the sadness in her eyes. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I do know one thing we can't give up. Not until every last Varnock knows exactly what they've done to us." Mia nodded, a flicker of determination lighting up her face. "Then we'll make them pay," she said. "For Lucas, for Alex, for all of them." As weeks passed, tensions continued to rise across human space. Protests grew larger and louder, with crowds chanting slogans like "Never Again" and "Protect Our Children." Politicians faced mounting pressure to take action, but the UNSC remained cautious. Engaging the Varnuk directly meant risking an all-out war one humanity might not survive. Still, public sentiment was undeniable. People wanted answers, and they wanted justice. In response, Earth's leaders issued a chilling declaration. Any Varnuk personnel encountered in human-controlled space were to be considered hostile and marked for immediate termination. The phrase "kill on sight" became a rallying cry, symbolizing humanity's refusal to tolerate further aggression. Back on Earth, Sarah's efforts gained momentum. Her articles and videos reached millions, sparking debates about humanity's place in the galaxy. Some argued for diplomacy, believing peace could still be achieved. Others called for immediate retaliation, insisting the Varnuk understood only force. Sarah herself fell somewhere in between. While she wanted revenge, she knew blind hatred wouldn't solve anything. What mattered most was ensuring such atrocities never happened again. To that end, she traveled to New Haven, hoping to document the aftermath of the massacre. The colony was eerily quiet now, its streets empty and its buildings reduced to rubble. Smoke still lingered in the air, mixing with the scent of burnt wood and metal. Sarah walked slowly, taking photos and recording footage. Every step felt heavier than the last, her heart breaking anew with each reminder of the lives lost. Near the edge of the settlement, she met Daniel Riley, a mechanic who had survived the attack by hiding in a storage shed. His face was pale, his hands trembling as he recounted the horrors he'd witnessed. "They didn't even hesitate," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They just shot us, like we weren't even human." Sarah listened intently, nodding as she jotted down notes. When he finished, she placed a hand on his shoulder. "Thank you for telling me," she said. "Your story matters. All of your stories matter." Daniel managed a weak smile. "Just promise me one thing," he said. "Promise me you'll make sure people remember." "I promise," Sarah replied firmly. "No one will forget." As she left New Haven, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she knew she wasn't alone. Across the stars, countless others shared her resolve. Together, they would stand against the darkness and ensure humanity's light burned brighter than ever. The days following Earth's declaration of kill on sight against the Varnuk were tense. Humanity braced itself for what might come next, unsure if the aliens would retaliate or ignore the warning. News outlets buzzed with speculation, and military bases prepared for potential attacks. The United Nations Space Command, UNSC, scrambled to reinforce colonies on the edge of human space. Knowing they were the most vulnerable, Epsilon 9 was one such colony. A small mining settlement located near unclaimed territory, it wasn't heavily fortified. Its people lived simple lives, extracting minerals from the planet's rocky surface and shipping them back to Earth. Among the settlers was Daniel Riley, the mechanic Sarah had met at New Haven. After surviving the massacre, he'd moved to Epsilon 9 hoping to start over. But peace didn't last long. One morning, as Daniel worked on repairing a broken drill rig, alarms blared across the settlement. Red lights flashed in the sky, signaling an incoming threat. Panic spread quickly among the colonists. Children cried. Parents shouted orders, and workers abandoned their tasks to seek shelter. Within minutes, everyone gathered in the colony's central bunker, a reinforced structure designed to withstand minor attacks, but not much more from inside the bunker. Daniel watched through a small window as 3 sleek ships descended from the clouds. They hovered silently above the ground before deploying a group of Varnuk soldiers. These aliens looked just like the ones who had attacked New Haven, tall, armored figures with cold, expressionless faces hidden behind helmets. Their weapons glowed faintly, ready to strike. The Varnock wasted no time. They began searching buildings, scanning for signs of resistance. It was clear they were looking for something or someone. Daniel clenched his fists, anger boiling inside. He wanted to fight back, to do something. But he knew they were outnumbered and outgunned. All they could do was wait and hope the soldiers left without causing harm, but luck wasn't on their side. One of the Varnock spotted movement near the edge of the settlement, a young boy named Sam who had been too scared to follow his family into the bunker. Before anyone could react, the alien raised its weapon and fired. A beam of blue energy struck Sam, sending him crumpling to the ground. His mother screamed, breaking cover to rush toward her son. Another blast silenced her cry forever. Inside the bunker, the colonists froze, horrified. Tears streamed down faces as they realized how powerless they were. Then something unexpected happened. A group of miners led by Marcus Hawley, a burly man with years of combat experience, decided they couldn't sit idly by. Armed with nothing more than mining tools and makeshift weapons, they charged out of the bunker, determined to protect their home. The battle that followed was chaotic and desperate. The miners fought with everything they had, using shovels, pickaxes, and even rocks to fend off the Varnock. Against all odds, they managed to injure several aliens and capture one alive. The rest retreated to their ships and fled, leaving behind smoldering wreckage and bodies. When the dust settled, the survivors emerged cautiously from the bunker. The cost of victory was high. Many colonists lay dead or wounded, but there was a flicker of hope in their hearts. For the first time, humanity had stood up to the Varnock and won. However small the win might have been, word of the skirmish reached Earth almost instantly. Reporters swarmed to Epsilon 9, eager to document the event. Sarah Bennett arrived within hours, camera in hand, determined to tell the story of these brave settlers. She interviewed Daniel, Marcus, and other survivors, capturing their raw emotions and first-hand accounts of the battle. Daniel recounted the moment he saw Sam fall, his voice trembling with rage and sorrow. "We weren't soldiers," he said. "We were just trying to live our lives. And they came here like we were nothing. But we showed them we're not going to roll over and die." Marcus added, "If they think they can walk all over us, they've got another thing coming. We may not have fancy weapons or big armies, but we've got guts. That counts for something." Sarah nodded, scribbling notes furiously. She knew this story would inspire others, showing that even ordinary people could make a difference when pushed to their limits. As she wrapped up her interviews, she turned her attention to the captured Varnock soldier. The alien sat bound in a corner of the colony's medical bay, surrounded by guards. Its helmet had been removed, revealing a pale, angular face with sharp features and glowing yellow eyes. Despite its injuries, it radiated hostility, glaring at anyone who dared approach. Sarah hesitated for a moment before stepping closer, her heart pounding. "Do you understand me?" she asked, speaking slowly and clearly. To her surprise, the alien responded, its voice distorted by a translator device strapped to its neck. "I understand you," it hissed. "You are weak, your kind will perish." Sarah swallowed hard but forced herself to stay calm. "Why did you attack us? Why kill innocent people?" The Varnock sneered. "Your species encroaches on our territory. You take what is ours. We do not tolerate thieves. So you murder children to send a message?" Sarah pressed, her voice rising. "Is that what your empire stands for?" The alien didn't answer directly. Instead, it leaned forward slightly, its gaze piercing. "You think this defiance changes anything? You are insects compared to us. Your rebellion will end in ashes." Despite its threats, Sarah refused to back down. Over the next few hours, she and Daniel questioned the prisoner further, piecing together fragments of information about the Varnock's plans. They learned that the artifacts found at New Haven were part of a larger network of technology scattered throughout human space devices meant to map resources and identify potential targets for invasion. The Varnock viewed humanity as a nuisance, unworthy of sharing the galaxy. Armed with this knowledge, Sarah transmitted her findings to Earth, urging leaders to act swiftly. "They're planning something big," she warned. "If we don't stop them now, they'll keep coming until there's nothing left." Meanwhile, aboard the Aurora Dawn, Ethan Grant and his squadron received orders to patrol contested regions near Epsilon 9. Tensions were high as they approached the area, knowing the Varnock could appear at any moment. Ethan felt a mix of fear and excitement coursing through him. This was his chance to prove himself, to honor Alex's memory by fighting back. As they scanned the dark expanse of space, Mia Torres spoke up, breaking the silence. "What happens if we run into them?" she asked, gripping the controls of her fighter tightly. "We follow protocol," Ethan replied firmly. "Stay alert and stick together. If they fire first, we retaliate." Mia nodded, though her knuckles whitened as she gripped the yoke. She trusted Ethan, but the thought of facing the Varnock head-on still terrified her. Their fears became reality sooner than expected. A squadron of Varnock fighters emerged from behind an asteroid belt, moving with deadly precision. Ethan's heart raced as he issued commands to his team: "Hold formation. Prepare for engagement." The enemy opened fire without warning, bolts of energy streaking past their ships. Ethan dodged instinctively, weaving through the chaos as his squadron returned fire. The battle was fast and furious, each second stretching into eternity. Ethan's training kicked in, guiding his movements as he targeted one Varnock ship after another. At one point, Mia's fighter took a hit, forcing her to pull away from the fight. Ethan glanced at her ship, concern flashing across his face. "Mia, report," he called over the comms. "I'm okay," she replied breathlessly. "Just a scratch. Keep going. I'll catch up." Relieved but focused, Ethan pressed on, determined to protect his team. With careful maneuvering and teamwork, they managed to destroy 2 Varnock fighters and disable a third. The remaining enemies retreated, disappearing into the void. Back on the Aurora Dawn, the crew erupted into cheers as Ethan and his squadron docked safely. Commander Lavra Hayes greeted them personally, pride shining in her eyes. "Well done, Lieutenant," she said, clapping Ethan on the shoulder. "You've made us proud." Ethan smiled faintly, though his mind was already racing ahead. This victory was significant, but it was only the beginning. The Varnock wouldn't give up easily, and humanity needed to be ready for whatever came next. As news of the skirmish spread, it reignited public support for action against the Varnock. Protests grew louder, demanding immediate retaliation. Politicians debated strategies, while scientists worked tirelessly to develop new technologies capable of matching the aliens' firepower. Slowly but surely, humanity began preparing for war. For Sarah, Ethan, Daniel, and countless others, the road ahead was fraught with challenges. But they shared a common goal: to ensure that no child, no family, and no community would ever suffer the way New Haven had. Together, they vowed to stand firm, united in their resolve to defend humanity's place among the stars. The days following the skirmish at Epsilon 9 marked a turning point for humanity. The victory, though small, proved that the Varnock were not invincible. News of the captured alien soldier and the successful defense of the colony spread across Earth and its settlements like wildfire. People began to see hope where there had once been only fear. For the first time, they believed they could fight back and win. Sarah Bennett returned to Earth, with her recordings and notes from Epsilon 9. She spent long nights editing her footage, piecing together a story that would not only inform, but inspire. Her article, titled "Standing Together: Humanity's First Blow Against the Varnock," was published in major newspapers and shared widely on social media. It featured interviews with survivors, images of the battle's aftermath, and details about the Varnak's plans to invade human space. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of people reached out to Sarah, thanking her for shedding light on the bravery of the colonists. Many expressed their anger and frustration, vowing to do whatever it took to protect their families and communities. Recruitment centers saw a surge in volunteers eager to join the United Nations Space Command, UNSC. Among them were farmers, teachers, engineers, and even teenagers who wanted to make a difference. The message was clear: humanity would not back down. Ethan Grant read Sarah's article aboard the Aurora Dawn, his chest swelling with pride. He had always known Earth's people were strong, but seeing their unity in action filled him with renewed determination. His squadron, too, felt the shift in morale. They trained harder than ever, pushing themselves to master new tactics and improve their skills. Every drill, every simulation, brought them closer to being ready for the next encounter with the Varnak. Commander Lara Hayes noticed the change in her crew. Gone was the hesitation and uncertainty that had lingered after the massacre at New Haven. In its place was a steely resolve, a shared understanding that failure was no longer an option. During one briefing, she addressed her team directly. "We've seen what happens when we stand our ground," she said, her voice steady and firm. "We've proven we can hold our own against the Varnak. But this is just the beginning. If we want to keep our people safe, we need to be better. Stronger, smarter. Are you with me?" The room erupted in cheers, each pilot raising their fist in agreement. Ethan exchanged a glance with Mia Torres, who sat beside him. Her eyes sparkled with determination, mirroring his own feelings. Together, they knew they could face whatever lay ahead. Back on Earth, governments and military leaders worked tirelessly to prepare for war. Factories ramped up production of weapons, ships, and equipment. Scientists collaborated across borders, pooling resources to develop advanced technologies capable of matching or surpassing the Varnak's arsenal. Diplomats reached out to neighboring alien civilizations, seeking alliances and support. While some species remained neutral, fearing retaliation from the Varnak, others agreed to help. A coalition began to form, uniting diverse races under a common goal: stopping the Varnak. One such ally was the Krill, a peaceful species known for their expertise in engineering. The Krill offered to share their knowledge of energy shields, which could protect human ships during battles. Their leader, a wise elder named Zarin, met with Earth's representatives via holographic communication. "The Varnak have grown too powerful," Zarin said, his voice calm but urgent. "If left unchecked, they will consume everything in their path. We cannot allow that to happen." Human leaders thanked the Krill for their assistance, knowing their contribution could tip the scales in humanity's favor. Other allies, including the aquatic Nereians and the nomadic Xylothians, pledged aid in the form of intelligence, resources, and tactical support. Slowly but surely, humanity built a network of friends willing to stand by their side. Meanwhile, Sarah continued her efforts to rally public support. She traveled across Earth, speaking at rallies and addressing crowds of thousands. Her speeches were passionate and heartfelt, drawing on her personal loss and the stories of those she had met along the way. At one event in New York City, she stood on stage overlooking a sea of faces holding signs that read, "Justice for New Haven," and "Never Forget." "They tried to break us," Sarah declared, her voice ringing out over the crowd. "They thought we'd cower in fear, that we'd let them take what they wanted without a fight. But they underestimated us. They didn't count on our courage, our strength, or our love for one another. And now we're showing them exactly who we are." The audience erupted in applause, cheering loudly as Sarah raised her fist in solidarity. Tears streamed down her face as she absorbed the moment. She had started this journey alone, driven by grief and anger, but now she was part of something much bigger, a movement that spanned planets and united billions. As humanity prepared for war, tensions with the Varnock escalated. Patrols in contested regions became more frequent, and encounters between human and alien forces grew increasingly hostile. On several occasions, Ethan and his squadron engaged Varnock fighters, testing their skills and learning valuable lessons about their enemy's strengths and weaknesses. Each victory boosted morale, while each defeat served as a reminder of how far they still had to go. One particularly intense mission stood out. Ethan's squadron was tasked with escorting a convoy of supply ships through a narrow corridor of space known to be frequented by Varnock patrols. As they approached the area, sensors detected multiple enemy vessels lying in wait. Ethan immediately ordered his team into formation, preparing for combat. "Stay sharp," he warned over the comms. "They'll try to split us up. Stick together and watch each other's backs." The Varnock attacked without warning, launching waves of drones alongside their fighters. Explosions lit up the darkness as energy bolts streaked past the human ships. Ethan maneuvered his fighter with precision, dodging attacks while targeting key enemies. Beside him, Mia fought fiercely. Her movements fluid and confident despite the chaos around them. For a moment, it seemed like the tide might turn against them. Two of their supply ships were hit, forcing the pilots to abandon ship, but Ethan refused to give up. With a risky maneuver, he lured a group of Varnock fighters into a trap, allowing Mia and the others to disable their engines. The remaining enemies retreated, leaving the convoy battered but intact. When they returned to the Aurora Dawn, the crew celebrated their success. Commander Hayes praised Ethan's leadership, calling him a natural-born strategist. Though flattered, Ethan knew the real credit belonged to his team. Without their coordination and bravery, they wouldn't have made it through as weeks turned into months. The stakes grew higher. Intelligence reports indicated that the Varnock were planning a large-scale assault on a major human outpost called Fort Valor. Located near the edge of human-controlled space, the fort served as a critical hub for mining operations and supply routes. Losing it would deal a devastating blow to humanity's war effort. Preparations for the defense of Fort Valor began immediately. Reinforcements poured in from nearby colonies, bolstering the garrison's numbers. Engineers worked around the clock to upgrade the fort's defenses, installing Krill-designed shields and setting up automated turrets. Civilians evacuated to safer locations, leaving behind only those determined to stay and fight. Among the defenders was Daniel Riley, who had volunteered to join the fort's militia after returning from Epsilon 9, armed with a rifle and fueled by anger. He vowed to protect the settlement no matter the cost. "I lost my home once," he told a fellow volunteer. "I'm not letting it happen again." As the predicted date of the attack drew near, anxiety gripped the fort. Soldiers checked their weapons obsessively, rehearsed evacuation plans, and wrote letters to loved ones they might never see again. Despite the fear, there was also a sense of unity, a shared understanding that they were fighting for something greater than themselves. On the eve of the battle, Ethan's squadron arrived to provide air support. As he walked through the fort's corridors, he saw soldiers huddled together, sharing stories and laughter in an effort to ease their nerves. He spotted Daniel among them, his face grim but resolute. They exchanged a nod, acknowledging the unspoken bond between them. That night, Ethan stood on the fort's observation deck, staring out at the stars. Mia joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to him before leaning against the zid railing. "What do you think tomorrow will bring?" she asked quietly. Ethan took a sip of his drink, considering the question. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I do know one thing: we're ready. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Mia smiled faintly, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "Together," she echoed. As dawn broke over Fort Valor, the sky filled with the roar of engines and the flash of weapons fire. The battle had begun, and humanity's fate hung in the balance. But for the first time, they faced it not as individuals, but as a united force ready to defend their homes, their families, and their future. The battle for Fort Valor began with a deafening roar. The Varnuk fleet descended upon the outpost like a storm, their ships cutting through the atmosphere with precision and speed. Explosions erupted across the horizon as bombs rained down on the fort's outer defenses. The ground shook violently, sending clouds of dust and debris spiraling into the air. For a moment, it seemed impossible that humanity could withstand such an assault. Inside the fort, soldiers scrambled to their positions. Daniel Riley crouched behind a barricade, clutching his rifle tightly. His heart pounded in his chest as he peered over the edge, watching enemy troops advance. The Varnuk moved with mechanical efficiency, their weapons glowing ominously as they fired relentlessly at anything that moved. Civilians who had stayed behind helped carry supplies and tend to the wounded, their faces pale but determined. Ethan Grant and his squadron soared above the chaos, engaging the Varnuk fighters in a deadly dance of fire and steel. Ethan's hands gripped the controls of his fighter, his eyes darting between the instrument panel and the battlefield below. The sky was filled with streaks of light as energy bolts zipped past his ship. Beside him, Mia Torres flew close, her movements sharp and deliberate. "Stay focused," Ethan called over the comms, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "We can't let them break through." Mia responded with a quick nod before breaking off to pursue a group of Varnuk drones. Her fighter weaved gracefully through the swarm, firing bursts of energy that sent several of the machines spiraling out of control. Ethan watched her for a split second before turning his attention back to the larger threat, a massive Varnuk cruiser hovering just beyond the fort's perimeter. The cruiser unleashed a barrage of missiles, targeting the fort's central command center. Ethan knew if it fell, the defenders would lose coordination and likely the battle itself. Without hesitation, he signaled to two other pilots in his squadron. "Follow me," he ordered. "We're taking out that cruiser." The three fighters dove toward the massive ship, dodging flat cannons and laser turrets as they closed in. Ethan led the charge, weaving through the chaos with practiced skill. He targeted one of the cruiser's engines, firing repeatedly until smoke began pouring from its hull. The other pilots followed suit, striking vital points along the vessel's structure. With a final thunderous explosion, the cruiser tilted dangerously and began descending toward the planet's surface. "Yes!" Ethan shouted, pumping his fist in triumph, but there was no time to celebrate. Below, the ground forces were struggling to hold their position. Waves of Varnuk soldiers continued to pour into the fort, overwhelming the defenders. Daniel gritted his teeth as he reloaded his rifle. The barricades around him were crumbling under the relentless assault. To his left, a soldier named Clara shouted, "Fall back to the inner walls. We can't hold this line much longer." Daniel hesitated, glancing at the others still fighting alongside him. Many were injured, their faces streaked with dirt and blood. He wanted to argue to insist they stay and fight, but deep down, he knew Clara was right. Reluctantly, he nodded and yelled, "Retreat, everyone fall back." They moved quickly, dragging the wounded with them as they made their way to the inner defenses. The retreat was chaotic, with Varnuk soldiers hot on their heels. Bullets whizzed past Daniel's head, narrowly missing him. Just as he reached the safety of the inner wall, a blast knocked him off his feet. Pain shot through his leg as he hit the ground hard, but he forced himself to crawl forward. A pair of strong hands grabbed him by the arms and hauled him inside. "Hold on," Clara said, dragging him behind cover. She ripped open a first aid kit and applied pressure to his wound. "You're going to be okay," she assured him, though her voice trembled slightly. High above, Ethan spotted the retreat and realized the situation was dire. He radioed Commander Hayes aboard the Aurora Dawn, requesting reinforcements. "We need everything you've got," he said urgently. "If we don't turn this around soon, we'll lose the fort." Hayes didn't hesitate. Within minutes, additional squadrons launched from the carrier, joining the fray. The skies lit up with renewed intensity as human and Varnock fighters clashed in a desperate struggle for dominance. Ethan coordinated the new arrivals, directing them to key targets and ensuring they worked together seamlessly. On the ground, the arrival of fresh air support provided a crucial lifeline for the defenders. Bombs dropped from above, decimating groups of advancing Varnock soldiers. Morale surged among the humans as they saw the tide beginning to shift. Encouraged, Daniel limped back to the front lines, refusing to sit idly by while his comrades fought. "We've got them on the ropes," Clara shouted, rallying the troops. "Push forward! Don't let them regroup." With newfound determination, the defenders launched a counterattack. Using makeshift barricades and improvised traps, they slowed the Varnock advance long enough to regain control of key areas. Daniel found himself shoulder to shoulder with strangers turned allies, each person contributing whatever they could to keep the enemy at bay. As the hours dragged on, the battle became a test of endurance. Both sides were battered and exhausted, but neither showed signs of backing down. It was clear that whoever held out longest would emerge victorious. Back aboard the Aurora Dawn, Sarah Bennett watched the unfolding conflict via live feeds transmitted from the fort. Her stomach churned as she witnessed the destruction and loss of life, but she also felt a surge of pride. Humanity was proving itself capable of standing toe-to-toe with an enemy far more advanced. She recorded video updates, sharing the events with audiences across Earth and its colonies. "This is what courage looks like," she said into her camera, her voice thick with emotion. "These men and women are fighting not just for themselves, but for every single person who believes in peace and justice. They are showing us that even in the darkest moments, hope can shine through." Her words resonated deeply with viewers, inspiring countless others to contribute however they could. Factories doubled their output, volunteers signed up for relief efforts, and donations poured in to support the war effort. Even children wrote letters of encouragement to the soldiers, reminding them why they were fighting. By nightfall, the Varnock began to falter. Their numbers dwindled, and their attacks grew less coordinated. Sensing weakness, Commander Hayes ordered a full-scale offensive. Every available ship and soldier joined the push, driving the Varnock back step by painful step. Finally, as dawn broke over Fort Valor, the remaining alien forces retreated, abandoning their dead and wounded. Cheers erupted throughout the fort as survivors embraced one another, tears streaming down their faces. Exhausted but triumphant, they surveyed the wreckage of their home. Buildings lay in ruins, fires smoldered in the distance, and bodies both human and Varnock littered the ground. Yet amidst the devastation, there was a sense of victory. Against all odds, they had won. Ethan landed his fighter near the fort's entrance, climbing out to join the celebration. His uniform was singed, his face streaked with soot, but his smile was genuine. As he walked toward the gathering crowd, he spotted Mia stepping out of her own ship. Their eyes met, and without a word, they hugged tightly, drawing strength from each other. Nearby, Daniel leaned against a wall, clutching his bandaged leg. Clara approached him, offering a hand. "You did good out there," she said, smiling. Softly, "So did you," Daniel replied, returning the gesture. "Couldn't have done it without everyone pitching in." Sarah arrived later that day, eager to document the aftermath. She interviewed soldiers, medics, and civilians, capturing their stories of resilience and bravery. One survivor, a young woman named Leah, summed it up perfectly. "We may have lost a lot today, but we gained something too. We proved that we're stronger than they thought. And next time they come, we'll be ready." As Sarah wrapped up her work, She reflected on how far humanity had come since the massacre at New Haven. From grief and anger had risen a united front, one willing to stand firm against tyranny. The road ahead would still be difficult, but for the first time, there was real hope. Fort Valor had become a symbol, a testament to humanity's ability to rise above despair and fight for a better future. And though the scars of battle would linger, so too would the lessons learned. Together, humanity had taken its first steps toward reclaiming its place in the galaxy. The victory at Fort Valor was a turning point, but it came at a heavy price. The defenders had lost nearly half their number, and the fort itself was in ruins. Fires still burned in parts of the settlement, and the air smelled of smoke and ash. Despite the destruction, survivors worked tirelessly to clean up the mess, bury their dead, and care for the wounded. They knew the battle wasn't just about winning, it was about proving that humanity could stand against the VARNOK. Word of the triumph spread quickly, reaching Earth and its colonies within hours. News outlets broadcast images of the battered fort, interviews with exhausted soldiers, and messages of gratitude from those who had been saved. Sarah Bennett's reports played a key role in spreading the story, her words painting a vivid picture of both the horrors and the heroism of the fight. Fort Valor didn't just survive, she wrote. It fought back. It showed us what we're capable of when we refuse to give up. The impact of the victory rippled across human space. Recruitment numbers soared as people lined up to join. The United Nations Space Command, UNSC, factories worked around the clock to build new ships, weapons, and supplies. Even children contributed by organizing fundraisers and writing letters to soldiers on the front lines. Humanity had found its resolve, and nothing could shake it. But the Varnok were not done. Intelligence reports revealed that they were preparing for a massive counterattack, one aimed directly at Earth itself. The aliens saw humanity's growing strength as a threat, and they intended to crush it before it became unstoppable. For the first time, Earth faced the possibility of invasion, a reality no one had dared imagine before. Commander Larva Hayes called an emergency meeting aboard the Aurora Dawn. She stood before her officers, her expression grim but resolute. "This is it," she said, her voice steady. "The Varnok are coming for us. If we don't stop them here, they'll destroy everything we've built. We need to take the fight to them, straight to their homeworld." Ethan Grant listened intently, his mind racing. Attacking the Varnok homeworld was risky, almost suicidal. Their technology was far superior, and their defenses would be impenetrable. But he also knew that sitting back and waiting for them to strike Earth would mean certain defeat. He raised his hand. "What's the plan?" he asked. Hayes nodded, acknowledging his question. "We hit them hard and fast," she explained. "We use every resource we have, ships, fighters, allies, and focus on crippling their command centers. Once we disrupt their chain of command, their forces will fall apart. It's our only chance." Mia Torres leaned forward, her brow furrowed. "And if we fail?" Hayes met her gaze without flinching. "Then we go down fighting, but I don't believe we'll fail. Not with everyone pulling together like this." Preparations began immediately. The UNSC mobilized its entire fleet, calling in reinforcements from allied species. Krill engineers worked overtime to upgrade human ships with advanced shielding technology, while Nerian scouts provided detailed maps of Varnok territory. Zalothian pilots joined Ethan's squadron, bringing with them years of experience in guerrilla warfare. Together, they formed a coalition unlike anything humanity had ever seen. As the fleet gathered near the edge of Varnok space, tensions ran high. Soldiers checked their gear obsessively, wrote final letters to loved ones, and tried to get some rest despite the looming uncertainty. Ethan wandered through the corridors of the Aurora Dawn, offering words of encouragement to his team. When he reached Mia's quarters, he knocked softly and stepped inside. She sat on her bunk, staring at a photo of her younger brother, Lucas. Her eyes were red, but her jaw was set firmly. "Hey, Ethan said gently. "You okay?" Mia glanced up, forcing a small smile. "I'm fine," she replied. "Just thinking about him, about all of them." Ethan nodded, understanding completely. "Me too," he admitted. "Alex, Jacob, Lily, everyone we've lost. They're counting on us to finish this." Mia stood, tucking the photo into her pocket. "Then let's make sure we don't let them down." The next morning, the fleet crossed into Varnock territory. The journey was tense, with everyone bracing for an ambush. But strangely, the path remained clear. It wasn't until they reached the outskirts of the Varnock homeworld that resistance appeared. Dozens of alien ships emerged from hiding, forming a wall of steel and fire between the humans and their target. "Here we go," Ethan muttered under his breath as he climbed into his fighter. Around him, pilots exchanged nervous glances, but there was no hesitation. This was it, the moment they had trained for. The battle that followed was unlike anything had experienced before. The sky above the Varnock homeworld was a swirling maelstrom of explosions, energy bolts, and debris. Human and allied ships darted through the chaos, dodging enemy fire while targeting key installations on the planet below. Ethan led his squadron with precision, weaving through enemy formations and taking out anti-aircraft turrets. "Focus on the towers," he shouted over the comms. "Take out their communication hubs." His team obeyed without question, their movements synchronized as if they were extensions of each other. One by one, the towering structures crumbled under relentless bombardment, severing the Varnock's ability to coordinate their forces. On the ground, Varnock troops scrambled in confusion, their once perfect organization falling apart. Meanwhile, Commander Hayes directed the main fleet to attack the planet's central command center, massive fortress protected by layers of shields and weaponry. The assault was brutal, with ships on both sides suffering heavy losses. But slowly, inch by inch, the coalition pushed forward. When the final barrier fell, a barrage of missiles struck the fortress, reducing it to rubble. Inside the fortress, the Varnock leadership scrambled to respond. Panic spread as their carefully orchestrated plans unraveled. Realizing they were losing control, they attempted to negotiate a ceasefire. A transmission crackled through the fleet's communication system, carrying the filtered voice of a Varnock commander. "You cannot win," the alien sneered. "Even if you destroy us, others will rise to take our place." Sarah Bennett, who had accompanied the fleet to document the mission, stepped forward. Through gritted teeth, she responded, "Maybe, but you won't be around to see it." Back aboard the Aurora Dawn, Ethan watched as the final waves of attacks crippled the Varnock military infrastructure. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light, and the skies above the homeworld grew eerily quiet. It was over. Humanity and its Allahs had one dot in the days that followed. The surviving Varnock sent emissaries to discuss terms of surrender. They agreed to withdraw from human-controlled space, dismantle their expansionist policies, and compensate Earth for the atrocities committed. Though many humans demanded harsher penalties, leaders chose restraint, knowing that peace was fragile and needed nurturing. On New Haven, a memorial service was held to honor the victims of the massacre that had started it all. Survivors, soldiers, and families gathered beneath a clear blue sky, standing shoulder to shoulder as names were read aloud. Sarah delivered a speech, her voice trembling with emotion, but unwavering in its conviction. "We lost so much," she sighed, looking out at the crowd. "But we gained something too, a reminder of who we are. We are resilient, we are united, and we will never again allow fear to dictate our lives." Ethan stood nearby, listening quietly. His gaze drifted to Mia, who stood beside him, her face calm but thoughtful. They had come so far since the days of grief and anger. Now they could look toward the future with hope. As the ceremony ended, Daniel Riley approached Sarah, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. "Thank you," he said simply, handing her the flowers, "for everything." Sarah smiled, accepting the gift. "No, thank you," she replied, "for reminding me why we fight." Across the galaxy, humanity began rebuilding. Colonies that had been abandoned were resettled, new alliances were forged, and dreams of exploration reignited. The scars of war would always remain, but so too would the lessons learned. Together, humanity had faced darkness and emerged stronger than ever. And somewhere, among the stars, the memory of 10 children whose lives had sparked a revolution burned brightly, a beacon of courage and unity that would guide generations to come.